Um, my name is Kimberly Howard, and I have the pleasure of co-hosting with the amazing Marlena Smith. But tonight we are going to talk about Million Dollar Baby, right? What does that mean, right? This is very near and dear in my heart. I have three children of my own. I am a wife, mother of three. One thing that really stood out to me was, hey, we can start our children early, right? And really generate um, generational wealth for them, even starting with something. But most importantly, too, as you learn in this webinar, it's just not about saving. But what if something happens, right? We never want to think about these things. But I did lose a child 3 years ago. So my passion is really to teach parents on how important it is to protect our children, right? At an early age. We never want to think about these things, but we are not in control, right? So, um, tonight, we will talk about how the Million Dollar Baby Plan works, okay, and how we can help you and your family start something like this if you have children, if you have grandchildren. Okay, so we're going to go in to the current financial reality of things, right? 60 to 70% of Americans, you guys, live paycheck to paycheck. You know, people are just getting by. Inflation is rising. I live in California, and you need to have 2 to 3 jobs over here, right? They said if you make 6 figures over here, you are considered low income, right? So 47% cannot afford $1,000 emergency without borrowing, right? So if they have credit cards, things like that, they need to borrow. And the average American household has a debt of 104,215. So it's like people are not even getting ahead, right? Debt is controlling because they can't borrow money for emergency. They have to put it in a credit card and they're living paycheck to paycheck. So how do we get ahead? Okay. And the average college graduate owes more than 37,853 in federal student loans. Mine is actually triple that. Right? So they teach us how to get a job, how to get go to school, get a good job. But then when we get out of school, you guys, we're already in debt. So that's why this is so important. Just learning these concepts on how to really position our children um, without the debt, right? Position them where they can be ahead. And it says here the average monthly Social Security benefit for 2025 is 1976 per month, right? Here in California, you cannot live off of that. I work for Adult Protective Services and I see this so many times. People are getting evicted out of their homes because they cannot afford rent anymore. Okay. And the average 403B 401k is about 240,000 by the age of 60. Okay. Here in California, that's probably just going to last you 2 years. And that's why people are going either working longer, right, Katie? Or they go back to work. They retire and they have to go back to work because they cannot afford to live with their income. So, and the average person will change careers every 4 years, even less time amongst those age 35 and younger. So, you guys, our goal is, educate our communities, but it's really time to change generational curses to generational wealth. Okay, we're going to play a small video, you guys. What is the Million Dollar Baby Plan? How does it work? And we'll go into the details. So it'll be a 2-minute
A
video.
pretty money savvy guy once said, Someone is sitting in the shade today because someone planted a tree a long time ago. So you're ready to start saving for your kids' future. You already understand the power of compound interest over time, so you know the sooner you start, the better. So where should you be saving that money? Let's talk about perhaps the most powerful and least known savings vehicle for kids on the market, Index Universal Life, or IUL. IUL stands out against all other savings vehicles in one main area of strength: flexibility. Other financial vehicles lock you into what you can use your savings on, but an IUL can be a first car, a college education, a down payment on a house, a wedding. IUL cash value can be used however, whenever, and on whatever you choose. Plus, since it's built on a financial chassis of life insurance, your child is instantly covered with hundreds of thousands of dollars of permanent life insurance with living benefits, simply as a side benefit of utilizing IUL as your choice of savings vehicle. Now don't freak out, the fact that it's life insurance is actually a good thing. Life insurance cash value comes with a ton of unique side benefits, like your cash value being protected from market losses, cash value growing tax deferred and being accessible tax-free, protection from lawsuits, and IUL cash value is not considered in asset calculations when applying for student loans for college. So, what could one of these policies look like for your kiddo? Let's say you had a baby today, and to take maximum advantage of the power of compound interest over time, you immediately start socking away $100 per month into an IUL. Right away, your child is now covered with $371,000 of permanent life insurance coverage with living benefits. That's a pretty nice little side benefit. And that financial foundation you establish for them today will continue to grow with them over the years and be available throughout their lifetime for whatever they need or want to use it for. Plus, if they don't access that money, right around retirement, their IUL is conservatively projected to hit $1 million of cash value. And at age 65, they could turn on a tax-free income stream of $75,000 per year that will last them the rest of their lives, no matter how long they live. The point is, they have options. IUL is the most flexible savings vehicle for children on the market, and the best time to plant that seed is today.
All right. So, isn't that amazing, you guys, that we can already create like a pension for our children so they don't have to worry about retirement? Okay. So, as you guys see, the $1 million baby plan, it uses what's called an index universal life insurance, which is a financial strategy really designed to build generational wealth, right? And it really depends on how you structure these things. Okay. So, it involves purchasing one, an IUL policy for a child at a young age and funding it over time to accumulate the cash value that you saw in the video. So the goal is to create lifelong financial benefits, including tax advantage growth, a death benefit, God forbid something happens, but also the ability to borrow against the policy for any major life expenses. Like if even if you wanted to buy your kids their first car or a home, right? You are able to use that cash value in the policy. So, what are the top three benefits of this $1 million baby plan? The first benefit is the cash value growth. Okay. So, what our kids have is more time, right? So, parent, grandparent, or a legal guardian can open an IUL policy for the child. Okay, so premiums are paid into the policy, which grows in a cash value base on an index strategy. What does indexing mean? I'll explain in a little bit. But example like the S&P 500, right? The top 500 things in the market. But what is an index strategy? So, what are your options for your money, right? So, one way is a fixed account. A fixed account, Miss Amanda, is basically like your CD or a high yield savings. You know it's going to be safe, right? But it's just growing very little. Okay. Sometimes in your regular savings account, it's growing like less than 1%. So that's not really where you want to put long-term growth for your money. The second way people grow their money is through what's called variable accounts. And Miss Natalie, these are like 401ks. These are things that are linked in the stock market. If the market goes down, you have the ability to lose money. So in 2022, my mom, that was the year she retired. That was right after COVID. She lost $20,000 in her 401k, right? I'm like, Mom, you could have just put that aside for the kids or you could have gave it to me, right? But um as you see, there's different ways to grow it. The third way is what's called indexing. And I always say zero is your hero because as you see here, if the market goes down, the worst that you can do um is 0%, right? You want to think of it like a staircase, but they also have a cap on these. Obviously, you can't get all the gains. So depending on the index, they have caps from 9 to 12%. Okay. So these is the way how your money grows. So tax advantages. Who likes, saving on taxes? Okay. So the cash value grows tax deferred, meaning that you don't pay taxes on the growth as it occurs. Okay. Your child can later access this cash value tax free through policy loans for education, home purchases, or retirement, right? Kind of like a Roth account. So you already put money that's been taxed, right? And now the growth on it is tax deferred. Wealth transfer, legacies. So the child can continue funding the policy into adulthood. Our goal for, my children, King David and Malachi, is really to help them understand how to save and pass this on to them. Okay, because the goal is to grow this into a potential $1 million assets. And later on, we will show you actual examples of my son's policy on how we structure these things. But also, one thing that's guaranteed, you guys, I always say is one, we saw it on the last slide, we're always going to pay taxes, okay? But two, we're going to pass away one day. We're going to go home. So, upon the insured's passing, beneficiaries receive a tax-free death benefit. This creates generational wealth, right? I always say, hey, Miss Amanda, do you know your great, 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 great grandfather or parent? And she's shaking her head no, right? Maybe because they didn't leave her any money. So, with us starting this for our children, right? They're able to build that generational wealth, which I will show you guys. So maybe you guys are already saving for your kids. You have a 529 plan, and you're wondering, Miss Kim, how does it compare to a 529 plan or something I already have for my child? Okay, as you see here, right, we have it compared to a high yield savings and a 529 plan. Growth potential, obviously it check mark all the plans, right? Safety and protection also checks off all the boxes and all the plans, but the tax advantage is only for the 529 plan and also for the $1 million baby plan. Liquidity, right? Some CDs or high yield savings, right? Well, CDs, sometimes you can't touch it for a couple of months, right? In a 529 plan, you could only access the funds for education, okay? Um, with the $1 million baby plan, you're able to access that fund for, let's say, what they said, purchasing a home or buying their first car. Okay. Guaranteed benefits. What does that mean? So, we will explain a little bit more, what if they get sick? What if they get injured, right? There's no benefits attached to a 529 plan or high yield savings. With the IUL plan, there is what's called protection in place and living benefits. Okay. The high yield savings account does have flexibility, right? I always encourage my clients, hey, for emergency funds, you want to put it in a high yield savings because they're growing right now about 3 to 4%, right? And it's flexible. You're able to touch it. So though that is where your emergency fund goes. But for if you want to grow your money for your children long term, right? The IUL plan has more flexibility than a 529 plan because a 529 plan, you could only use it for education. Legacy and wealth transfer, right? You can transfer the 529 plan, the $1 Million Baby plan. Protection against inflation, right? The high yield savings is only growing 3 to 4%. The 529 plans grows with the market as well. And then the IUL plan we discuss as it grows when it's index funds, right? It's like that staircase. You want to look at it like a staircase. And then the last one is does not affect financial aid. So, Miss Marlena, when you apply for college for Miss Mariah, they're going to say, "Hey, Miss Marlena, it looks like you have money to pay for Mariah's college, right?" Sometimes it affects the financial aid because they see that you can pay for some of her college. So with the IUL plan, they do not look at this as an asset. So you are able to qualify for financial aid with this plan. So it does not affect it. All right. So I'm gonna pass it to Miss Marlena, and she's gonna go over the benefits and how to set a plan like this up for your children.
Thank you so much, Kim. That was amazing. Like she said, my name is Marlena Smith. I also have three amazing children, and I have this plan for them, right? This plan was what was first introduced to me when I even started thinking about my finances. I learned about this plan, and I was so grateful that I was able to have peace of mind when it came to saving for my children's future, right? But to sum everything up that Kimberly just went over and the video went over, right? The benefits of this plan, number one, is that tax advantage growth, right? Cash value that grows without immediate taxation. Number two, the market protection, where we have gains that are capped, but there is a floor to prevent losses. Guaranteed no loss. Zero is your hero. Right? We talked about legacy and death benefit that provides that financial security, not just for yourself and your children, but for future generations. Flexibility to access your funds. So you have loans that you can take tax free for major life events and expenses. And this plan does not have restrictions that a 401k or an IRA may have, where you have to be a certain age before you can access the money or you will incur penalties, right? So there is that flexibility to access your funds. And then my favorite that we didn't touch on too much here, but my favorite thing about this plan is that whatever you contribute into this plan, you're going to get it back one way or another, right? So if we think about car insurance, you are an amazing driver and you're paying car insurance month after month for 40 years, and you have a stellar driving record at the end of that 40 years, do they give you your money back? No, right? You're just paying for that peace of mind and because it's the law, right? To have car insurance. But in this plan, whatever you put into this plan, you or your family is going to get it back one way or another, whether it be that cash value that you use for those major life expenses or whatever it may be, the living benefits, which we'll go over when we talk about the illustrations that we put together for you guys. Income, if you would like to use the money that's in here as a guaranteed lifetime income, or the death benefit, right? Maybe you don't touch it at all and the money just accumulates in there, and that money goes to the next generation. So this is absolutely one of my favorite features, is that I know I'm contributing money into a plan that is going to benefit my family one way or another, right? So hopefully after all of this information, you are thinking, how do I start $1 million baby plan for my child, right? Or maybe you're even thinking, how do I start one for myself? And that is also possible, right? Kimberly, I'm not sure if she mentioned in the beginning, we call it the $1 million baby plan because we understand how valuable time is when it comes to saving for the future and building wealth. But this is available for us as well, right? Whether you have a child, it's for your child, or you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever it may be, we can help you structure a plan like this. And it will vary based on your age and health, but we can definitely start this for not just babies, right? But how would you start this for your child? The number one thing you want to do is choose a reputable insurance company. And the companies that we work with here at Our Infinite Company have been vetted. They are A-rated or higher. Our flagship company that we work with has been around for 178 years. So they have stood the test of time. They have made it through the depression, the recession, pandemic, different presidents, all the things. And they still have their slogan is never lose a penny, right? They have taken care of their clients all throughout that almost 2 centuries. But you also want to make sure that the company has a favorable IUL product for children. And what we mean by this, when I show the illustration, right? And when we first heard about this, Kimberly and I, when we first heard about this plan for our children back in, I think, 2014 or so, living benefits were not available for children, right? So you want to make sure, and there are still companies out there that have index universal life plans that do not offer living benefits on juvenile plans. So you want to make sure it's a company that does have a product that has favorable IUL products for children. Number two, you want to structure the plan properly. So this is where it's important to sit down with a financial professional to help you do what's called a financial needs analysis and just see a full picture of your finances, what you make, what you spend, what plans you already have in place, along with the goals for you and your family, right? So a parent or a guardian would own the policy, as we heard in the beginning. The child is going to be the insured because they cannot own a policy if they are under 18. And then we can help you choose the coverage and funding strategies that maximize long-term cash value growth and that aligns with your goals, needs, and objectives as a family. And then we want to make sure that you understand the plan, right? Here at Our Infinite Company, our number one goal is to make sure that education is first, right? We want to make sure that our clients understand what they have, not just give out quotes and then next year you're like, why am I paying this $200 bill, right? We want to make sure that you understand how the plan grows, what are the protection features, right? Things like the market index growth potential that Kimberly went over, downside protection, the caps and floors, and understanding those strategies, tax advantage loans and withdrawals that you can access, and understanding, like I said, unlike a 401k or a 403b or an IRA, you don't have to wait until 59 and a half to access that money. And then the optional riders that are available for future insurability and long-term care. So that one is huge when it comes to putting these plans in place for our children. Okay, so a lot of times we'll hear my own family, right? When I first learned about this plan and I was sharing this with my parents, they're like, "What? Kids don't need life insurance, right?" But life insurance has evolved so much over time, and they're not aware of all these additional benefits that life insurance has. But also getting life insurance on our children early guarantees our insurability for the future. So if you have a child that plays sports, right, and they have an injury in high school and something happens and they're no longer insurable, if you put this plan in place for them ahead of time, that guarantees their insurability. This cannot be taken away from them as long as you keep up with the monthly contributions and fund it properly. Next is to apply and fund the policy. So once you understand everything, we know your goals, we've done your FNA, your financial needs analysis, you understand how the plan works and the benefit features attached to it, then we can apply and start funding the policy. And again, for children, because life insurance is based on, excuse me, life insurance is based on age and health, there is minimal underwriting for children because generally, right, our children are young, obviously, and they're generally healthy. So you can begin funding early to maximize compounding growth, which again, we'll show you on the illustration. And then policy ownership can be transferred to the child in adulthood. So this is not a feature that is automatic, which I love that. So it doesn't happen automatically when they turn 18. So if you do not feel your child is responsible enough yet, maybe you need to wait a few more years, you have the decision on when you transfer that ownership once they are an adult, right? But ultimately, it's not just putting money away and knowing where to stash it, right? We want to train up our children in the way they should go. Even when they are old, they will not depart from it, right? So this is one of our favorite scriptures, but also uh, what we truly believe in and what we are striving for when it comes to uh, building the next generation and preparing them for their future. So, like Kimberly said, we are going to show you guys some real life examples, right? It's a lot of information and it sounds good, but sometimes it's hard to really see how it works. So, we're going to show you two illustrations, and I'm going to refer to them as Mr. Start Early and Mr. Start Late, right? If you've been on any of our other calls, you may have heard that example used before as well. But this first policy is actually Kimberly's son's policy, King David. And she started this plan for him when he was 9 years old. And again, she had multiple plans for him when he was younger, but they did not have living benefits. So once she found out there were living benefits, she started another plan for him. Okay. So we are going to refer to him as Mr. Start Early. But as you see here, the way that this is funded, Kimberly and her husband decided they're going to put $50 each a month into this plan to start saving for their son. If God forbid something happens to their son, right? If he passed away, 186,386 would go to the family. And that's not a number we say on here because we want to uh, benefit off the loss of our children, right? But we also do not want to be putting out GoFundMe's, right? How many people have seen GoFundMe's, especially after the pandemic? I see it weekly, right? So this is just to help the family not have to also worry about finances when something horrible like this happens, right? Number two, what if he needs cash, right? So these puzzle pieces along here are the puzzle pieces that we need to look at and the things that we need to think about when we're planning for the future. What if I die too soon? What if I live too long, right? A long, healthy life. And what if I become ill, right? So what if you live too long? In this case, King David, because his parents decided to put money into this plan as opposed to under their mattress or in a savings account making 0.01%, because they chose to put their money in this account at age 69, King David will have almost $2 million in his cash value, his cash accumulation. Okay. And if anybody is taking notes, I would like for you to write this number down, right? So you can understand why we call him Mr. Start Early, right? So at age 69, he would have $1,956,365 available to him tax-free in his cash accumulation. If he doesn't touch it, compounding interest will continue to grow that money, even though they are no longer contributing into this plan. At 74, you'll have 2.7 million. 79, 3.7. At 84, $5 million. Okay. Excuse me. This next one here, this next puzzle piece, right? What if I become ill? So as Kimberly said, she works in senior protective services and sees a lot of times people can be well off financially, but once they get sick and they didn't plan for getting sick or having a major illness, they have to deplete their assets. They have to um, sometimes sell their homes or reduce their assets low enough so that they can rely on the government, right? So having a plan like this in place gives you that protection for if you do become ill. And in this case, this is showing at age 65, if King David were diagnosed with a terminal illness, he would have access to $1.5 million lump sum. So I have a cousin who had this plan. Again, she was not a baby when she started it. She started this plan at age 35 because she knew she wanted to have children and she wanted to be prepared, right? She learned about it. She didn't have children yet, but she wanted to get a head start. So she got about $1.5 million in coverage with living benefits. She started the plan in, I think, November or December of 2016. And in February of 2017, she was diagnosed with a very rare form of cancer, terminal illness, and was given 6 months to live. And I tell you this because I know this is real. Sometimes you hear this and you're like, no, this is too good to be true. I don't believe it. Who's actually gotten the money, right? Number one, our co-founder was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic cancer and has received a living benefit. So we know firsthand that it pays out. But my cousin, same situation. During her battle with cancer, she was able to access $1 million from her living benefits to do treatments that she wanted to do, right? Not treatments that the hospital forced her to do because that's all her insurance covered. Unfortunately, she did not make it that whole 6 months. She made it 5 out of those 6 months, and we lost her in June of 2017. So a big chunk of that money was still left behind. But this is what we talk about when we talk about leaving a legacy and generational wealth, right? A lot of times people say, like, oh, I don't even have children. I don't have anybody I want to leave money to. But you have to think bigger, right? So in her case, she didn't have children of her own. So she researched what country has the lowest education rating, right? It needs the most help. And she decided on Bali, Indonesia. So while she was in her final days, she asked her husband to look into Bali, Indonesia, and start schools for underprivileged children. So that money that they received from this living benefit, she was able to continue her legacy by having her family and her husband start schools in Bali, Indonesia, right? And at this time, there are now 5 schools in honor of my cousin. So 5 schools in honor of Leonor Calaustro, educating and providing a safe, comfortable space for over 300 children, right? So I just tell you that because I want you guys to think much bigger than just a few dollars. What can this do just for my immediate family, right? Really think, what type of legacy do you want to leave in this world, right? But again, for living benefits, back to living benefits, chronic illness, right? A chronic illness is something where you lose or need assistance with 2 of your activities of daily living. Here in California, for a nursing facility or a assisted living facility is almost $10,000 a month. I believe there was is it a memory care facility, Kimberly, that your client had to put her
Assisted
mother
living.
in, is almost 20,000 a month, right? So having this plan in place is going to make a huge difference for King David if he has a chronic illness and needs that income, right? A critical illness, $1 million lump sum, critical injury, $1 million lump sum, and then Alzheimer's, which is on a rapid rise in our country, would give him $1.5 million in through his living benefits, right? So this plan is much more powerful than just a hefty savings account, right? But let's look how it really works here. So again, Kimberly and her husband are going to be putting $100 a month into this account for the first few years, $1,200 a year for the first 5 years. After that, they are building their business and their careers, so they are expecting an increase in their cash flow. So they're going to increase it to $200 a month, $2,400 a year. And then once King David is old enough, they're going to teach him how to also save, right? So they're going to tell him, King David, you're now 19. Mommy and daddy are putting 200 a month in here. We want you to also put 200 a month of your money into this plan and start saving for your future, right? So 4,800 a month. And they're going to do that until age 45, right? King David is a young entrepreneur. He's probably going to retire early. So 45 is probably a good year for them to stop contributing into this plan. So over that 37-year span from age 9 to 45, they contributed $147,600 into this plan. But if we take a look over here where it says accumulated value, which is that cash value accumulation, they have over 412,000 in this plan already, just because they put 147,000 in this plan, right? Plus, they still have all those living benefits, plus the death benefit, which is over 800,000, almost 900,000, if God forbid he were to pass away at that time, right? But this is what we mean about the power of time. After 45, they're no longer contributing any money, but time is now building his wealth. So at age 49, that 412 has grown to 533,832. At age 60, he's hit that $1 million mark, right? Which is why we call this the $1 million baby plan, because he can reach $1 million or more in their lifetime. So $1 million at age 60, at age 72 million, as we saw on the initial page, at age 80. Let's say 80, he has other plans, right? This is his second or third IUL plan. So if he never touches his plan, this is going to go to the next generation. Average life expectancy for a man is about 83, 84 years old. At 83, if King David passes away and never touches his plan, $5 million will go to the next generation. How will that change the way his children and his grandchildren live? How will that change the way they make decisions, right? Where they're not forced to be with a job they hate because the money is good, or stay somewhere they don't want to work just because of the benefits, right? They can make choices, they can dream, they can start businesses, whatever it may be. So very, very powerful plan, right? But again, like I said, you do not have to be a child to have this plan. So this is one of my clients. He's 23-year-old male. We'll call him Mr. Start Late, even though technically he's still starting pretty early, right? But compared to King David, he's a little bit late to the game. But he's going to start with a little bit more, putting $150 per month. Again, if something were to happen to him and he were to pass away early, $167,237 would go to his family. Here we structured this, if he were to live too long, we structured it a little bit differently, right? In King David's, we're just letting that cash accumulation continue to grow and compound. For this young man, we're going to add what's called a lifetime income benefit rider, right? So the number one thing that people fear in retirement is outliving their money, right? We retire in our 60s, but we're living till 80s, 90s. My grandmother made it to 101, right? That's a lot of years of retirement that you have to fund. So this plan has what's called a lifetime income benefit rider, where at age 70, if he decides to start taking out an income, he would get $6,579 per month for the rest of his life. Okay. And this young man had a lot of questions for me about Social Security. Like, what about Social Security? Won't that help me? Won't that help me pay for retirement? So we talked about it, right? And as we saw on the first slide, average Social Security payment is less than $2,000 a month. Okay. Even at age 23, he can barely live off of $2,000 a month, right? Let alone when he has a house, a different lifestyle in his older years. But I looked to see what is the maximum that somebody can get from Social Security. And from my research, I saw that the maximum somebody can get is $5,181 per month in Social Security, but there are certain criteria that they need to meet, right? So number one, they have to work 35 years. Number two, they need to earn the maximum taxable wage for that year. And in 2025, that was $184,500. Okay. So I just want to take a moment there, right? The government is saying you need to make $184,500 so we can give you 5,181 per month. So a little over 60,000 a year. That's over 100,000 drop in income. Huge gap to fill if you're used to a certain lifestyle, right? And then the last one is you have to wait until age 70 to claim that Social Security benefit. Okay. So based on that information is how I helped him structure his plan. As you see, all of these living benefits are also available to him. Terminal illness, chronic illness, critical injury, and Alzheimer's. But again, these are very customizable and flexible plans. So his first 3 years, he's putting 150. And he's expecting to get raises along the way. So then we increase it to 250 year 4 through 6, which is 3,000 a year. Then 350, 450, and then we level out at about 500 per month, 6,000 per year, from year 13 all the way till year 35. Okay. So similar to King David, he contributed into this plan for 35 years, has 181,200. But the cash value, that accumulated value at that time, is almost $500,000. So amazing a rate of return on your investment or on your contribution. But again, you still have the living benefits available, still have the death benefit if God forbid something happens that would go to your family tax free, right? But if anybody wrote down that number, I want you to take a look here at age 69, right? Still, this plan looks amazing. But at 69, this young man has 1,096,507. Okay, let me see if I can put my calculator. So if you guys remember, does anybody remember what King David had at age 69? I do. So 1,956,000. Actually, I didn't write the whole number, but let's say it was 365. Yeah, okay, thank you. So if we subtract what this young man has, which is 1,000,000, where are we? 96,507. That's 859,858 difference. Okay. And he only put less than 40,000 more than King David. He put less than 40,000 more than him, but he has 859,858 less because he started later, right? But look what this young man has here. At age 70, if he starts taking income from that lifetime income benefit, he has 78,948 per year, every year for the rest of his life, tax-free, right? And tax-free, that Social Security amount that I said did not factor in taxes yet, okay? But imagine what King David's looks like, right? King David, if he starts to take money at age 70, he has a 6-figure income for the rest of his life. Isn't that amazing? So this is really something that we can set our children up for success by just starting off small and building over time. And again, you see just in those first few years of collecting that 78,948, he's already collected over 1,026,000 in income because he put 181,200, right? 181,200 into this plan. And these plans are permanent plans that will cover you until age 120. And I always say, one of the things that plays a huge role in medical ailments is financial stress. And I don't think this young man will have much financial stress. So he may make it to 120, right? If he makes it to 120, just in that lifetime income benefit alone, he would have collected 4,026,348. Again, because he put $181,200 into this plan as opposed to a shoebox or a bank account. And there would still be 88,687 left for his family to take care of his final expenses and so forth. So I get really excited talking about this plan because it really can be very life changing if it's structured properly and set in place. Um, so again, why do we call it the $1 million baby plan? Why do we focus on the children? Why should we start early? As you saw on there are lower monthly and total contributions over time. There is more years for that money to compound and grow. There's greater long-term cash accumulation, right? We saw with King David almost another $1 million more because they started early on his plan. That future financial flexibility. So if he does choose to retire at age 45, he can actually access his cash value instead of waiting till 59 and a half, like he would with a traditional retirement plan. And then that lifelong insurability that will have him covered for the rest of his life, regardless of any pre-existing conditions or medical conditions that come up along the way. So hopefully you've seen on here why time matters more than money and why we should start these for our children and start them early. Okay. So your next steps, so you've made it this far on the call with us. Number one, we want you to get back to the person who invited you and one, thank them for sharing this information with you because this is not information that is shared in schools or in many households. But next, set up an appointment so that you can structure a plan for your own children or for yourself. And then let us help you create $1 million babies, whether it's a baby or a grown adult, right? I'm a $1 million baby. Kimberly is a $1 million baby. And we do this call weekly because we truly are passionate about sharing this information. So if, as you were listening, somebody came to mind that you would like to share this information with, either refer them to the person that invited you here or invite them to our call next week, which we will do same time, same place. We do it every week on Wednesdays, 6:30 Pacific, 8:30 Central, 9:30 Eastern Time. So refer whoever comes to mind that can benefit from this, and let's make some $1 million babies. So thank you guys for sharing your Wednesday evening with us. Let me see. I do not have
Yeah.
anything in the chat. Okay. All right. But thank you again for joining us. If anybody has any questions, we have maybe 2 minutes. But if not, we wish you a wonderful evening and we will see you on the next call or on your one-on-one meeting. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank
Thank
you. Good
you.
night.
Good night.